there's been a lot of pushback in the press, and people are talking about the high power of companies like Facebook and Amazon and these mega powers that own the tech world now today. So in China, you've got the equivalent of Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and a few others like JD and the drone company. Is there too much power concentrated in these tech titans? And is that stifling startup energy?
So it's interesting. So if you took the 100 largest startups in China, 50% have an investment or a strategic relationship with Baidu, Alibaba, or Tencent. 50%. In the US, if you take the same companies, you take, they're not quite the same, I can never call them Alphabet, I always call them Google. So you take Google, you take Amazon, you take Apple, and you take Facebook, 5%. That's really, really important to understand what Chinese entrepreneurs have to face.
Yeah.
If you're a social networking company or a social media, social commerce, e-commerce company in China, and you don't have a connection with the channels that those three or four major players represent, it's tough. I would have bet anything. In fact, we did make bets on a couple companies that if you went from 2012 to 2016, that the concentration in e-commerce sales in China that Alibaba and JD.com held would decline. It did not. Alibaba and JD.com today, with all the various aspects, still have nearly 90% of all the e-commerce traffic in China. That to me is unimaginable concentration. So I think that that's actually really important. So I think if you look at the concentration in the Chinese sector, it's really tied again to transactions. The thing I really don't like about what's happening in the US on the social media with the Google side is they're becoming like oil companies. What I mean by that is they take an asset that they don't pay for, which is everyone in this room, and they heavily monetize it. And history will say anytime you have a free asset that you heavily monetize, you abuse it. And I think that we're starting to see some of that behavior. Who in Mark Zuckerberg's staff came up with the brilliant idea, with everything that's going on right now in that company, to announce a product for 12 and unders this month? Who? Who in this room thought that was a good idea? Right? You have an investigation with the feds, you have all this other nonsense, and you announce a product to try to, quote, addict kids, unquote, under the age of 12.
So maybe that's one, that's a good point. Maybe that's one section where Facebook has not copied WeChat. Okay, what?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Let's see. Should China, I'll get to you in a minute, but I want to ask Gary one more question about Chinese companies. Should they go global? Can they go global? And then we'll have an audience question right after that.
So
can and should they go global?
Yeah, they will. And I think should or not, the Chinese market is so large that the interesting thing will be in past history, if a U.S. tech company was the largest in the U.S., by definition, they were always the largest in the world. That's not the case anymore. Because the largest companies in China, again, might be a different model, but the largest companies in China could very well be the largest company in the world. So you don't have that at-home advantage that you get to export overseas. I think that's a big change. And I think that has really big repercussions for how companies from the US or companies from China compete. The challenge for a lot of Chinese firms comes down to trust. And it comes down to their ability to hire people that they trust enough to really give them the leadership opportunity to run those firms overseas. US firms have perfected that and then have gotten really, really good about hiring local folks that they bring in and that they make part of their management teams. The Chinese firms are lagging in that. And I think that that's really today the weakness for a lot of these firms. It's very hard for them to make Indian entrepreneurs part of the mothership back in Beijing. It's very hard for them to make African entrepreneurs part of that mothership back in Beijing. And what you have to do if you're a US company is you have to realize that's really the jujitsu that you have, is going more local and actually being really aggressive about that is actually, I think, a huge advantage that US firms can do, and it's better, it's more easily adapted to US culture. But the Chinese firms are going to be international. There's really nothing stopping them from doing that.
What was Uber's mistake in China?
Why do you think they made a mistake?
They didn't win.
They own 30% of a company that could wind up being worth more than Uber. And, you know, I don't like Travis very much, but if you look at what happened, they went in, they lost billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, and they wind up with a 30% stake in a company that could be worth more than them. I'm trying to figure out why that's a loss. I mean, it's not, they don't own China, but again, pretty naive. You're going to go into China with a data-driven business model, collecting information about Chinese citizens, and you expect that the government's going to say, that's a great idea. No, but they still wound up with a huge equity stake in a company that is likely to be much larger than them. I actually think they played that really well.
I don't know if they played it that well. I mean, it seems like it was kind of forced on them in a
outcome.
way, right? The outcome.
The outcome was good.
No, okay, the outcome was good. Salvio, you had a question?
Yeah, Gary, what's your opinion about Toutiao, which is not owned by Alibaba?
Toutiao?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. The news aggregator
They are
using
ripping right now.
using AI, right?
AI, they're ripping right now. They are worth $27 billion now, and they are not owned by you, Alibaba, or Tencent. What is your opinion about that?
So, in full disclosure, they're acquiring one of our companies
Oh, come on.
as we speak. And we missed that deal twice, which in the, you know, I don't have that many sins of commission, but I have lots of sins of omission. And this is one where we really did miss a chance to invest in that. I think their business model seems really solid. And the thing is, just like a C-Trip has done this, Meituan-Dian, if you get to critical mass and distribution, then you don't need Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu.
And they have now.
But they're at that point now. So
Yep.
so if you can reach escape velocity
Yep.
without them, then you can do it. It just is hard.
I know.
Okay, one last question before we move on to Mobike in the back, all the way in the back.
Are you telling us that the management of Uber is as smart as the management of Xiaomi?
Did everybody hear the question? Are
No.
you telling me that the management of Uber is as smart as the management of Xiaomi?
Oh, I think the management of Uber, well, it depends which iteration of Uber. I have a great deal of respect for Dana, the new CEO. I think he is
I'm not
world-class.
criticizing anybody.
And in fact, actually it's quite different, right? Because Xiaomi hasn't tried to go into a market and then failed and had to sell out. I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, as a failure, that 30% failure may wind up, covering a lot of the sins that Uber created over the years.
Okay, moving on. Let's give Gary a round of applause, please.